Hello, this is the RPG Pundit, the final boss at Internet Shitlords. And just put my pipe aside here. Today, I am doing a review of Fuchsia Malaise. And to get started on this, I suppose what I should first say is that I've been thinking a bit about the nature of like Gonzo fantasy, right? And if you make a spectrum of, say, post-apocalyptic fantasy RPGs that could theoretically classify under Gonzo, there's kind of two axes by which you have to judge them. And one is the level of weirdness, and the other is the level, let's say, of consistency. Those are two different things, right? So from one place you have the spectrum of like extremely weird to the point of, let's say that's where you can have a range from almost cartoonishly weird all the way over to just kind of strange and unusual but not bizarre. And then on the other side you have the level of consistency, which can be from a really carefully organized world that has perfect sense to it and that you can understand why everything happened the way it happened, and why it works the way it works, to one where there seems to be very little care. It looks as though the creator of the world just did an alphabet soup and threw some Scrabble tiles and then made up some names and put everything in whatever order he felt like, and it doesn't really have any consistency at all, right? So those are the lines of the spectrum, right? And so if you took the big games that are the game settings that are connected to that, let's say, for example, you could have like Dark Sun, and you could have Chult, you could have The World of the Last Sun, and you could have Gamma World. And all of these would have varying levels, and in some cases varying by edition when it comes to Gamma World, of just how weird it is, and also to some extent how consistent it is, right? And so what I'm getting to with this is that sometimes there is a change in the level of it, and that's I think what we see here with Fuchsia Malaise, because like the last video I did when I reviewed Chult, the main book of this weird Gonzo fantasy setting, I stood it up as an example of what I called stupid Gonzo, right? And I didn't mean that just as an insulting remark. I was defining it as a genre, that it was different, for example, from a Gonzo that is very rationalized and very consistent. It has some weird things in it, but it's still designed with a coherent concept, which would a great example would be Dark Sun. And then a world that has apparent inconsistencies, incoherences, but it also has a kind of underlying reason and order to it, and that it also has weirder stuff than, say, Dark Sun, but it is its weirdness that is largely in the sense of strangeness. It's like Dark Sun's weirdness, but maybe with some exaggeration, and only occasionally goes into the place of parody or the absurd, right? And so that's World of the Last Sun that I've just described. And then Chult, the original Chult, was a world that had almost no consistency. Its coherence was just whatever you wanted to put in there. At least that was the appearance of it. It was just a bunch of stuff thrown around, and its weirdness level was off the charts in the realm of not just strangenesses, but in many cases outright parody and even topical parody that would appear regularly in the book. and references to things like TV shows, and not just homages to, but outright references, right, of TV shows, of characters. I mean, he literally had Tom Hanks's guy from Saturday Night Live in there, and he made no effort to hide it, right? He presents it, he says in the front of it, it's parody, right? So that level is what I would call stupid Gonzo, right? Now the thing is, I've taken some time to look at Fuchsia Malaise, and I think that there has been some changes. Now, I don't think the weirdness has changed. Not very much. You're going to find things in this book that you will see are very weird. And there are plenty of parodies and outright pop culture references in Fuchsia Malaise. What has changed is I think that there's now a growing coherence and consistency forming in the setting, right? Like it's starting to tie together, which is kind of weird, right? Because I mean, if in one sense it's still stupid Gonzo, but in another it means that now suddenly there's like a backstory, and it's a coherent backstory. It's not a backstory that sounds like it was written by a drug-addled, drunken madman or something that had, that was just this rambling thing that nobody could make out. Now there's a plot that has developed that is a fairly coherent meta plot. And for some people, they might think, okay, that's great. That makes Chult even better now. But then I could see a lot of people that were drawn to the just absolute, totally rando wackiness of Chult, that will see that maybe as something that is in their way. I don't know. It's hard to say because frankly, this is not the type of Gonzo that I like. I like the type of Gonzo I present in World of the Last Sun, and that's just the right level for me. But there we are. So to start with, the quality of the Fuchsia Malaise book is undoubtable. It is. Don't know how long it is. It's 300 and something, I think, pages, or 230 or so pages. So it's smaller, as you can see, than Dark Albion. Larger, obviously, than my relatively small Lion and Dragon. But the quality of the book is really good. I want to point out if you don't have the sleeve is nice, but the actual cover is also really damn nice. So that's something very impressive. Hats off to you for that, Venger. I'll mention another thing that I noticed as I was turning pages. I sometimes had to, I was I must have grabbed more than one page. And no, it's just that's the thickness of the paper, right? So it's just thick paper. It's got a very nice consistency to it. All of it is like full color. So this is a high quality product in terms of its basic structure. Here you have, for example, a complete map of the Chult region, right? And I mean, it's a very figurative map, right? It doesn't have much except points of interest in it, right? Like it's not really any topography. There's a dry riverbed there. There's it's not like the Greyhawk hex map, right? Or like the hex maps you'll get of England in Dark Albion, right? There's no careful realism to it. It's just a bunch of stuff. But this is still much more consistent now. And there's more stuff in it, right? Like, so there's stuff being added to this world. I'll mention that the artwork in it is really quite good, as you can see from this image. High quality art. In the foreword here, Venger mentions that you can use Fuchsia Malaise as a prequel, sequel, or companion to Chult. So this is like in the main Chult book, the main thing is the Black Pyramid. Here, there's other stuff that you can go and explore, right? So it is essentially an expansion. And here's where we start getting into some of the meta plot. So there's the question of what is the Fuchsia Malaise? Well, the Fuchsia Malaise is a reference to in a drug-addled mental state that happens when natives use a drug that is called Xanthium 138. And so like it starts telling you this whole story. Whoop. Damn it, don't want to drop this. Okay. It starts telling you this whole story about how you had the world of Chult was kind of ignored until the in the Galactic Empire or whatever, there was the discovery of Zoth, which is this substance that is used to make something called the spice melange, which is a blatant ripoff of Dune, of course, and then that was to power their stuff, right? And so they started mining Chult. In the process, they would force basically the native Chaltians to work the mines, and in exchange would pay them, but they also flooded the area with a drug called Xanthium-138 that leaves the users extremely dazed and pacified. It's basically opium, right? We're talking about your classic kind of abusing the native setup, and in the process now, the company that has taken over the Chult mining interest is also draining the planet of all of its water. So it's kind of becoming more like Dune, right? I guess that's the deal. Here it notes that it's like 18 months since the last events outlined in the Chult, 18 months after the events in the main Chult book. And it also mentions that the Federation has been affected by a highly contagious coronavirus, which is, again, here you have contemporary references, right? There's a lot of those. So you get some, but here you do get some very interesting stuff. You get some new races, another elf, like as if you didn't have enough elves already in this setting. Grogs, which are like these creatures of sand. Humans and half-elves are given brief notice there. The Vor, which are part reptile, part bird. The Visum, which are these weird creatures with many eyes. None of those are particularly exciting, but they're there. That's useful, right? Then you get some tables, the first few of which are not that great. You have a morale system that is really too simple. Also a reaction system that is really too simple, which seems funny to me because in the OSR, there's a 2d6 based morale system and a 2d6 based reaction system that are perfect. So why replace it with something that is a 1d6 based far too random thingy, right? There's some disguise rules which I incredibly aren't totally random, because it mentions if you're a thief or an actor, you get to roll twice and use the better result, I guess. You roll with advantage, but like really it's still think about Venger's tables. A lot of them, he like either dials it in or screws it up. And once in a while, you get some that are just fantastic. This one isn't. That's NPCs. This one isn't. This is practically useless, right? That one, not so much. Here you have a standard humanoid stat block. And again, I should mention that in Fuchsia Malaise, it's set up as a game that is meant to be a setting that is meant to be compatible for both the OSR and 5th edition, and that's very, to do that he's created like basically these ultra simple stat blocks, which I think is actually really clever. You've got to give him credit where credit is due. You have AC, hit points, a save presented as a number, you roll equal or higher due to save, attack bonus damage, hit dice attacks, right? That's it. That's the stat block for a typical NPC, right? And so it means that any monsters you encounter, you'll get special abilities and treasure, right? So any monsters that you have in there, you could very easily modify for OSR or for 5th edition with almost no changes needing to be made, right? Here you have motivating adventures, still too small. Social hierarchy, that's okay, but that's really a list, not a random roll. If you were going to make it a random roll, you need to have the top end much more, like there shouldn't be, unless 1 in 6 of everybody in Chult is an elite, and I'm pretty sure from the setting it's not. You got this wrong, Venger. Death is not the end, so there's a rule to see if there's somebody that survived getting to the negative hit point threshold. I guess that's sort of all right. It's basically a kind of a luck roll, but I don't know. Chult names. I see what you did there. I see what you did there. Okay. spacer background, where you're from, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's great, but you'd probably want to have these, you'd want these to be bigger tables with more like, for example, in my upcoming Invisible College RPG, there will be 40 different background origin stories for a character. Here, there is essentially 14, right? Stuff they've looted. PTSD from deep journeys into astral space. This is a random roll to determine your relation to the Fuchsia Malaise, that is to say, really to the xanthium drug. And I guess that can be useful if you really want to know what's going on, Big Chungus. Chungus. There's a Chungus right here. That's a Chungus. Chungus is also troubled by the quality of some of the random tables that Venger is making. Dehydration. This should not be a random table, Venger. What this should be is a set of mechanics of regularly increasing conditions. But no, you make it a random table. All right. Murder, hope, or regret. All right, whatever. Faction beliefs. Okay, here you got what are basically 20 different philosophies. That's good. That can be useful for a list for around. That's enough numbers, right? So there's a good table. Here is also a pretty good table. It's a D100 table of random NPC traits. So you run into an NPC, you want to do a roll to see what their like general, deal is about. There you have it, right? This is a good sized table. How useful is this NPC? Well, it tells you stuff the NPC might have. That's also good. Excellent table there. Crazy art. Oh. Oh no. We have an incident going on here. It appears Meatball has gotten her paw stuck to something. Meatball, what's going on? Oh no. Excuse me, guys. I gotta help her. Just give me 1 sec here. You get your paw stuck? What a crazy cat. All right, the crisis has been averted. Sorry about that. These cats, I tell you. Anyway, that was a wrapper from a Starbucks thing they had a little bit of tape on it, and she got stuck to the tape. Crazed drug infused visions, too small. I've literally I've had more hallucinations in one night than this, A hallucination aftermath, probably too small. As the demon offer you, demonic favors, NPC interactions. As you can see, there is a lot of random stuff, some of which is going to be good, some of which you can pick over, a lot of which is too little info as typical. Magic items, like a list of a handful of things, some of which are interesting, sure, The Fuchsia Shadow. Okay, so this is basically like a wild magic effect that is now happening whenever you try to cast something, as the world of Chult becomes more unstable. And this is a pretty good big table of like wild magic events that happen, some of which are like really nuts, right? So like there's one where where was that one? Here we go. So the sorcerer's head falls off immediately after the spell is cast. Up from the neck hole sprouts all manner of tentacles dripping jaundiced yellow and purple slime. The tentacles then devour the sorcerer's corpse and give birth to an egg. The egg hatches. A miniature version of the magician climbs out as he slowly enlarges to normal size. The whole metamorphosis takes about an hour. That's great. Okay, my hat's off to you, Venger, for that one. That's fantastic. There's also the TMNT effect. All dumb animals within 50 feet of the sorcerer triple in size and intelligence becoming human hybrids that inexplicably know some form of martial arts. Okay, see that? The other one was really clever in a very amusing way, right? This one is stupid Gonzo, classic, like complete with the pop culture reference. So next we get to the city of Agrabah, which is one of the new places that they're talking about here, which I'm pretty sure is the city from Aladdin. I mean, I don't know because I haven't seen it since probably, since the movie came out. You know? But I bet you that Venger has seen it because he has, I don't know, 18 kids or something like that. So he probably has to see it every day. And anyway, you got the city of Agrabah, which is like one of the great cities of the place. You got some stuff on how they have terrible taxation. You've got some noble houses and stuff about rags. Like, this is all pretty good stuff, pretty good fantasy stuff, you know, detailed stuff, coherent stuff. So it leads me to wonder, and I guess those of you who are real Chult fans will have to tell me, like, does this make Chult better when it looks like, when it has more coherent stuff? Or does it make it less enjoyable to you because it has more coherent stuff? Like, what's the deal? You know, like, do you guys actually want Chult to make sense, or do you want to revel in it having no sense at all? That's my question. So you have like the different areas, and then in each area it mentions stuff that happens. It's hard to say. These aren't like encounters, and they're also not exactly adventure seeds. Some of them are adventure seeds, some of them are encounters. Some of them are just stuff that you'd kind of like see there, but that provide you with flavor. It's good though. Like, this is all stuff that is useful for people going around the city. Some more excellent artwork there. And then on top of that, you have a D100 unlikely events in Agrabah. Okay, great stuff, right? Like some good random tables here, really useful. I'm liking this. This is something I think, like, the coherence of this section is something that certainly makes Chult better, in my opinion. But I'm not the original audience of Chult, right? I'm the original audience of World of the Last Sun, which has got a lot of goofy stuff in it. It's got a lot of weird stuff in it, but it's always been more coherent than the stuff Venger put out until now. Venger seems to be growing and enhancing in his abilities, because I do think this is generally better written than his previous stuff has been, you know. Not that he was ever terrible. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that I notice more precision in his writing. So here you have some more places, things you encounter. The dreaded clown worm. What the hell? But there you are. There's like underground subways that are, this is, I guess, a bit of an homage, I suppose, to like Tecumel or something, like with the underground tunnel transports. Though, I mean, it could be also to other stuff. But anyways, you've got some random encounters there. Then you have like, this is where it starts going into like series of disconnected things that are nevertheless kind of useful. And then random scenarios. Here you have a dungeon that is actually a living thing. Okay, that's been done to death, you know. Then there's also in here a Doctor Who reference. And this is but you know, it's okay. This one's average. You got the Tower of Vromcad, I don't know. Anyway, which again, we get into the color power theme. You know, I'm pretty sure. I don't know how many of you have seen the series of Mighty Wind. Not the series, the movie Mighty Wind. If you haven't watched it, you should really watch it. It's like this mockumentary about like the folk music scene, and in it there are these guys that are color witches. I think Venger is secretly a color witch. He's not actually a Cthulhu worshipping Satanist at all. He's like, I'm a color witch. Like red, yellow, orange, green, blue, indigo, violet. You can just imagine him. Anyway, you got here the overview here, some more weirdo rooms with colors, which is what prompted my little side. The Tomb of Van Zane, which is it's named after a weird tale writer named Van Zane. The tomb is jagged blood stains. So it's like some again weird real life references and stuff. You know, the writer's workshop, and Plato's sculptures. So don't worry if you're worried that this has become too normal. It definitely hasn't. And even if you're worried that this has become too non-stupid, it also hasn't. There is still quite a bit of stupidity in it, quite a bit of weirdness in it, without a doubt. The postmodernist collective there, and anti-modernist individuals. And zombified spider priests. A lot of stuff in here. Here we get to another really great part. Look at that. This Elysium, which is this super tech city that was done by the, Galactic Empire people or whatever. I don't remember. Federation, I think they're. I don't know. I don't remember if he calls them the Federation or the Empire, but it's the same bad guys from Alpha Blue, basically. Like, this is part of the Alpha Blue universe. And Elysium is the Federation's base on Chult. And here you get some great material. So there's a list of different types of species that you'll find there. A far too short list of names. List of professions. Probably could have just been a list, but I guess it's okay that it's a table. There's factions. All this could have been a paragraph explaining that there's like different opinions among people there. Stat blocks. And then there's like, the idea is, Chult is going to be destroyed if the guys that run Elysium keep draining it of all its water and sucking up all its zoth, and that it's it's basically going to be the end of the world. They may even be planning to, it's the Federation, there you go. They may even be planning to, exterminate all life on Chult. So at some point, you got to go in there and kill them, which is really amusing because this is basically like an anti-imperialist adventure. And it'll be funny seeing, if I was Venger, I'd be milking that little fact for all it's worth, making a big deal of your anti-imperialist message here. But it's a great mega dungeon. It's got a lot of info. It's relatively coherent in as much as it's not as stupidly incoherent as Chult was, but it's closer to some of the moderately to more incoherent end of Alpha Blue. It's obviously where the two meet. There's a lot of stupid humor in it anyways, though, but it is a really complete mega dungeon. As you can see, this is how many rooms here? So it's 55 rooms, and then there's a starship at the end there. Again, great art, great maps. That's to me, that was like, that and Agrabah are the two highlights of the sections here. Don't even ask about the smoking fish head. Kali makes an appearance for some reason. Plus this thing. Subterranean Chult talks about tunnels that go to different places under Chult, I guess. This is a short spelunking adventure, I guess you could say. And that here, page 186, is basically the end of Chult Fuchsia Malaise. Then we get to the appendices, which are various degrees of useless. Crimson Dragon Slayer revised, because everybody didn't ask for this. Crimson Dragon Slayer was a game that was definitely not an OSR game that Venger kept trying to insist was. And so here he's done a revised version of Crimson Dragon Slayer, which is still not an OSR game, but is a little bit closer to compatibility. So I guess that's something, You would wonder why he doesn't just make an OSR game, but so be it. I don't know what to say. And this is just basically his version of the game made for. It's an ultra simple game, and it's what he uses, I think, to play. I'm not sure. I don't know if he even uses rules. Knowing him, he might not. He might just be making it all up as he goes along, and I would explain why his rule writing is generally not that great. Next, you have Chult Ascended, which expands with some special abilities. Basically like kind of special powers that characters can have. Again, not sure who was asking for this, but I mean, all right. I mean, I wouldn't use this, but not for the player characters anyways, but some people might like to, so I guess that's all right. Some of them are all right, by the way. And then past deeds of heroism and cowardice, which is just another random background table. He has a lot of different random background tables that if he combined into one big background table would let people roll for their new character to have some kind of a background event, and there would still be enough variety that they would never, repeat themselves. And that might have been good. And note, by the way, the Venger self-portrait there of him apparently trying to psychoanalyze H.P. Lovecraft, which is, to me, the greatest example of the blind leading the blind, but there we are. And then finally we have the OSR like a fucking boss, which is Venger's guide, I guess, to the OSR, which is really funny because it has taken him this long to start to get an idea what the OSR is, and in this book he does better at it than in the past, but still isn't really there. So I'm not sure if anyone should trust his opinion of how to do the OSR. Anyways, one thing he does mention is he hopes to one day soon complete the third and final book of the Chalt trilogy, Chalt Chartreuse Shadows. So there you go. Expect another Kickstarter. I do have to say this has been these are just a series of rules of how to do OSR stuff, a lot of which are not really about the OSR, some of which are wrong, a few of which are right. The definition of old school Renaissance was provided by Wikipedia. I think that tells you everything. There is an appendix at the end. I haven't really looked carefully to tell how useful it is. But on the whole, in terms of production values, the book is amazing. Just, fantastic production values. No one can deny that. In terms of playability, this is a campaign setting / adventures book that has a number of disjointed adventures. It has a kind of an overall area that it briefly describes and a couple of specific places that it describes in great detail. And within the context of that, if you are running a game that is not Chalt, but is a weird Gonzo fantasy game, or is a standard fantasy game that you want to create a Gonzo area or space for, or maybe is a weird science fantasy game, like science fiction fantasy game in the case of Elysium, I guess you could do that too. And so there's stuff from those adventures and from that setting material that you can borrow. In terms of rules material, there isn't a lot new in terms of rules material that you can add, but there are a lot of random tables, many of which are not great, but a few of which are really good, and that have stuff that you can use that in most cases you can apply to things other than the Chalt setting, right? The NPC tables, for example, they'll have some Chalt references in them, but you could probably very quickly adapt that. And so that's an example of something you could use. Finally, in terms of Chalt itself, I'm not the best person to judge whether this product improves Chalt or doesn't, because I'm not a big Chalt fan, right? I think if it was from my perspective, it gives Chalt more coherence. It creates more detail to the backstory. It explains certain things. It has a couple of areas now that are basically much less silly areas than usual. It still has a lot of the big failings, right? The Venger's dungeons have no internal consistency, right? If you like dungeons that have an ecosystem where like things in one room influence things in another room, or things in one series of rooms influence other areas, this is not, Venger's just not your writer, period, right? This is definitely not your product. What you do get in Venger's dungeons are like complete, like goofy randomness, to the point that, there's stuff that probably there's no good way to explain how it's in a certain room. some things that probably couldn't get out of a certain room and they're just stuck there, right? It's like the dragon in the, in the 40 by 40 room that only has 5 foot tall doors, like it's that sort of thing. And so if you want really coherent, cleverly crafted dungeons that have an internal rationality to them, this is not your product. If you like crazy, wacky dungeons, you're not worried by the fact that you're going to go from one room to the other and there's going to be stuff there that like are literally next door but don't seem to have any effect on each other. There are people in rooms where there would be no way to get out, or where you would have no safe way to obtain food. There's no explanation how these people survive. There's basically set piece encounters with weirdos and people who are very clearly sometimes barely disguised, sometimes, as I've said, not even disguised a tiny little bit, pop culture characters that are just going to be there, so if you don't mind that stuff, you're going to have a good time, right? If you do mind that stuff, you're really not going to like it. But in terms of the overall arch of the bigger setting, aside from the dungeons, and in fact, including if you treat Elysium like a dungeon, because the setup for presenting Elysium is you got to go kill everybody in there because otherwise Chult is doomed. Elysium, for example, is not a super incoherent. It's got a coherence to it, right? So there's a coherence creep going on where the game is creeping towards coherence very slowly. And it's not up to me to judge whether that makes it better or worse. I'm just here to do reviews and probably rip off a few of his things for some of my products, like he's ripped off some of my things for his products. and so the cycle continues, right? I still think that Fire Station Aleph is better than Alpha Blue, and Venger wrote presented Chult. Possibly was it as a response to the shithole? Who knows? Hard to say. But there we are. The challenge makes us each better at our craft, I guess. So you'll have to judge for yourself, but you're certainly going to get, if you're not scared of the goofiness, and you haven't encountered it before, you're certainly going to get a good product here. Incidentally, you probably don't really 100% need the main Chult book to have, like, there's nothing here that is going to be essential that you have in the first book. So if you want to get this one and not get Chult, you could still probably use almost everything in here, even in a Chult setting, right? Like you won't have any of the details of the Black Pyramid, but the Black Pyramid is just one place on Chult, or Gamma Incel Cantina. It's another place on, it's just locations, right? It's like an area. This is a book that covers certain locations. That's a book that covers other locations. You put them together, you've got a bigger world, right? You keep them apart, and you could still use either one. Anyways, I guess that's basically it. I will say that this is not a bad product at all. It's done. It's done its job, I think, as far as the purpose for which people who buy Venger stuff use it. That's all I can really say, because it's like, it's a bit of a mystery to me, but there we are. Certainly the production values are great. The writing is still very much Venger, slightly more precise and slightly more coherent. If you like that, that'll be better. If you don't like it, it won't. I guess that's it. So currently smoking. This is a Lorenzetti half volcano with our Argento Natural. Oh, yeah, and please share this video. Post it anywhere you like. Post it anywhere it'll piss people off or that people will appreciate it. Please like this video. Check out my links below. Check out to buy Lion and Dragon and Dark Albion, as well as Chult. There'll be a link for all three of them in there somewhere. And if you want to support me, buy my products, my RPGPundit Presents series or my big books, and I'll keep doing more videos, including more reviews. And if you have a book that you wanted me to review, get in touch with me. You'll have to ship it to me. I only review print stuff, so I can show it on my handheld camera thing here, but camera tripod. But if you want to, get in touch. That's everything for today.